So can you see all of these dark skins? I'm going to go and hide in the back over there.
Where's that author?
Leadership, take your seats. My dearest pianist, good evening to you. No, he's not just a pianist, he's actually an author. And if we can give him a round of applause, Mr. Angus himself. Author of Mischief, which is a sublime book. It's on the shelves. Miss MacDonald, it's so beautiful to see you tonight.
If I could just
You
take
did.
that and record it in
You
there,
didn't
so try
sign me,
not to
Trace.
be different.
You didn't sign me. Let's get Paralyzed. How many books did we get? Good evening, everybody. How are you this evening?
Fine.
On behalf of Scoop Theatre Books, my name is Deborah, and I'd like to welcome you to the best bookshop in Johannesburg. Marlene, I've got books for you. The best bookshop in Johannesburg, and to our monthly business book club, which came from an idea from Mr. Villan and I had a singles night we had here. I'm going to let Jacques tell you about the business book club. Jacques, how many books did we collect? Guys, did we do a count last year? 1,200 books we collected for the library that Jacques is hosting in Soweto, and I'll let him tell you about that. First timers here tonight, please raise your hands. Can I just see you? Shame on you, really. Seriously. You should be ashamed of yourselves. Can you please check in on your phone, Scoop Theatre Books, the Business Book Club, also on Facebook. I'd really appreciate it. Tell everybody why you're here and what we're doing here. We'll let Jacques tell you about that from his side. Tonight we're hoping to get the author from tonight in December, but unfortunately he's so popular and fully booked that we had to grovel and pray and send things to the universe to get Mr. Joey Evans here tonight with his book From Para to Dakar. And it gives me great privilege to welcome you at last to Scoop Zero Books.
It's fantastic to be here. Thank
Thank
you
you
very much.
so much for being here this evening. Can we give a round of applause, please? Mtukozo Siafunda Book, thank you for being here tonight as well. Jane, thank you for organising this leadership and all those leaderships that are here. I'm not calling you out tonight. Jockey, our first one for the year. Let's take this away and let's just take 2018 into another stratosphere. Mr. Jacques Benjamin, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Welcome everybody to the first event of the Business Book Club for the year. Now, for those of you who have never been here before, the tradition with the Business Book Club is that we don't charge a fee. So we ask people to donate books. Why? And why books? I mean, let's think about why are we asking you to donate a book? Well, first of all, the books are earmarked for a library in Soweto called Signature Library. We opened the library last year with Minister Gigaba, and it's an important place in Soweto where the community could have access to knowledge. Okay, because the big thing about knowledge is you don't know what you don't know. And to give people access to knowledge, you empower them to change their thinking and to change their behaviors. And then they give them choices. So knowledge gives people choices. And when you have a choice, you can choose a different life. So that's what we do. That's part of the Business Book Club. So when you attend the Business Book Club, please, we ask you to donate a book because it goes to the Signature Library. And if by chance you have forgotten your book at home, I mean, that happens. I get it. You know, it happens. If that does happen to you, I'd really like to recommend our author on stage, Joey. His book is superb. And we're going to talk about that book tonight. So if you've forgotten your book at home, please support our author. I mean, otherwise, if you feel like you know there's another book calling you, I mean, this is a bookshop after all. So don't feel that your heart has to be empty and that you feel like there's a hole in your heart because you weren't able to give tonight. There is a way to support. Okay. So let's just talk about the Business Book Club for 2 seconds. The reason why I found the Business Book Club is I've always had a feeling or a sense that, you know, being part of life, you know, and choosing life, you have to contribute. And, you know, contributing, we all can contribute in different ways. You know, I had a specific issue with contributing in a way where you give, but you just, you know, give the fish. For me, it's more about teaching people to fish. And that giving resonated more with me. So when we talk about books and about giving books, you're enabling people to fish for themselves, as opposed to just give a monetary value or to give something. And that's why the library is important, because the library, you recycle the books. So it doesn't just go to somebody that lies on their table, it's a process of recycling the books. So it goes into a system and there's people that have access to that. And that's why the Business Book Club is important to us. Okay. So, without further ado, I want to talk about our author for tonight, Mr. Joey Evans. So I met Joey last year for the first time. Being part of PSA SA, Joey attended one of our talks and he presented, he gave us his presentation. It was probably one of the mind-blowing presentations of somebody's life that I've ever seen. And it's not about the bike. This is about a journey that a guy has gone through. And we're going to share that journey, and he's going to share that journey with us tonight. So, without further ado, Joey, would you like to join me up here?
A high stool and a mic, I might want to sing, you know.
But Joey, we know that, you know, when we're talking about things that are high, your bike was very high at the stage for you. You know, so let's just jump right into the story, and you know, we'll just go wild and we'll go back and forth and back and forth. So just keep with us as we journey through Joey's story. But I mean, you had a story, but just, you know, talking about the bike, being on a bike, after, you know, you've been through an accident. What was that like?
My mate Neil, and he was helping another guy learn to ride a bike. And I saw them across the way there in the veld, and I walked across to them, and we started chatting, and you know what guys are like, they remember the old days, and we used to, And then he said, do you want to give it a go? Now this is, you know, probably 2 years since I've had this accident. I'm walking all right and doing okay, and I was like, let me get my leg over. And I got on this bike, and I pulled out the kickstart to start it, and I lifted up my leg, and I couldn't pick my leg up properly, so I'd grab my shorts like this, and I picked my leg up, pop it on the Kickstarter, and I couldn't hold the bike up with one leg, and so I just fell down, you know, with the bike on top of me. And you know what your mates are like? They're not like, oh, shame, you're okay. They're like, haha, you chop, you know. And then they helped me pick the bike up and helped me get on again. And they started it for me, and I rode that bike just around that flat area, just a couple 100 meters. But not being able to run, not being able to jump and play other sports, to be able to just twist that throttle and just go like, whoop, and that freedom was like, yes, we're going to ride again. We so have to ride again. It was just fantastic.
Now, Joey, I mean, you're talking about Meredith. Now, Meredith is his wife, and I think one of the great things about his book, which you really have to support, is her story is also in the book. So on the one side, you've got Joey's story, but if you page through it, there's like the italics part. That wasn't Joey being drunk and writing funny. That is Meredith. So if you go in there, you can see, you know, there's Meredith's story. And so it's amazing to hear her side of what Joey went through, because you can imagine, Joey, you guys, I mean, they've been together, I mean, they're childhood sweethearts, they've been together forever. And then the stuff that happened to you, I mean, it was her experience too. So maybe just share a bit of Meredith and how you guys got together.
Cool. All right, well, we're actually having our 20th anniversary this year. So if I could have some donations, tell me buy a decent gift, that'd be great. Yeah, she won't accept a book for some reason. I guess what I talk a little bit about is just the relationship we have, because a lot of times people say to me, she's the one that deserves the medal. And yeah, you're spot on, you know, it really is. But we are complete opposites, which a lot of people, you know, don't realize. Often you marry someone similar to you and stuff, but I'm more extroverted. I love outdoors and sports and, you know, like contact type sports, you know, that type of stuff. Meredith loves watching movies. She's more introvert. She's soft. She's not aggressive in any way. And so we're very different. I like to have me time, and she likes a lot of us time. And it's almost foreign why I would want me time. Like, why would you want that? You know, is there a problem here? You know, and I'm like, no, I love us time, but I like me time too. And that's kind of a foreign concept for when we first got married. And so over the years, we've kind of like figured each other out, you know, and it is a perfect balance, but it sways back and forth. And so sometimes I can be a bit selfish, and I'm like, I want to go ride with my mates through Botswana and sleep in a tent and smell like campfires and, you know, get some testosterone going, you know. And so sometimes I'll do like too much of that, and then your relationship isn't great, and not great with your kids and all that sort of stuff. And other times I'm at home with these 4 daughters and my wife, which I love them all dearly, but I can just feel my estrogen levels climbing. And, you know, my skin starts going a little soft, and, you know, my facial hair goes soft, and I'm like, I need to get out more, you know. And so we have this kind of sway back and forth, and we kind of figure it out. And so, like, for instance, leading up to Dakar, there was a lot of training. You know, I rode in Botswana and in Mozambique and Swaziland, and these long trips, and, you know, just 5-6 days on the bike every day, just trying to get fitness levels up, and so it was withdrawing a lot from this emotional bank account. And so coming back last year was a lot more like, let's get the balance right, let's do some more family time and stuff. Because one of the important things for me is I don't want to be that guy that achieves all of his racing goals and does all this like crazy gnarly stuff and things, but in the process you lost your family. I didn't want to do that. And so Meredith was very understanding, you know, and then yeah, but then it's a case of you pay back and you catch up the time and stuff, and so we have this balance going along, and so she understands me and I understand her to some degree as much as you can understand, you know, a woman. But slowly but surely we've kind of done this thing, and yeah, we try to find the balance. Yeah.
So Joey, I mean, talking about bikes and doing the Dakar, when can you remember your first time on a motorbike?
Yeah, no, I reckon I could, yeah. I had a buddy in high school called his name was Sheldon, and he used to race motocross. And his dad obviously, you know, sponsored him, bought him his bike and that kind of stuff. And I rode BMXs and those sort of things, but I was one of 6 children, so motorbikes growing up was simply not a possibility. But he had this bike, and it was a KX125, a green one, and man, that was cool. And he would let me ride it. And so we were in the veld, and he tried to teach me to ride the bike. And so, you know, when we like, you know, and it's front wheels coming up all over the show. And eventually I started getting just the hang of this, going around the veld a bit. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then there was like this little jump. And when I say little jump, it was little, you know, you're getting maybe 30 centimeters of air off it, you know, type of thing. And he's trying to teach me, come around and go like this. And I'm like, okay, cool. Mess it up again a couple times, and then the one time I was like, got my 30 centimeters of air, and I was like, I was so excited, and I turned around like this, and I was like, yeah! And there was an anthill, and I hit this anthill and just went right over the bars, and so that was my official introduction to the world of dirt bikes.
I wonder you can remember that.
I've crashed since then, once or twice.
Okay. Yeah, we understand. So Joey, I mean, you obviously, you know, you had to be satisfied with your BMX, or was it a Western Flyer or something like that? I remember those. Yeah, the Western Flyer rallies. I remember them. Those like plastic makeup. Back pedal, big seat, had the fake tank, the numbers. I mean, they were beautiful in those days. I mean, we're taking you back way back. Anyway, but you then finally got into, I mean, how did you get into motorcycling? You know, I remember your age was about 26 when you actually only started to get, how did that all happen?
Yeah, well, it's something that a lot of people don't realize, but I got my first motorbike at 26, and often, you know, people just assume you were one of these kids that grew up riding motorbikes, but it was bicycles for me. And only when I was 26, I was married already. You know, I got married when I was 23. And so I already had, I think, 2 children by then, because by the time I was 28, I had 4 daughters. So, yeah, if you got a talent, you got to use it, you know? And my talent's not changing nappies, but it was so. Then I was earning my own money, you know, I had my own little business, and one of Sheldon's mates was actually selling his race bike at the end of the season. He had a sponsored bike, and it was the end of the season, so it came up and it was a good price, and I was like, I've always wanted to do this, and so I bought it. And I bought a second-hand, it was a CR250, a 2-stroke motorbike, and I got that bike, and I went with my wife, and I was like, and she's like, oh, I don't know, this biking thing, you know. And we went and bought it, we loaded it on the back of my bakkie, and we went home and stuff, and I offloaded it and stuff, and then a couple of days later, I'm like, I'm going to go riding in the veld. And she's like, okay. She's like, you know how to ride this? I'm like, no, I don't. But, you know, I'd ridden Sheldon's once or twice as a teenager and then nothing. So I bought a motorbike, but I didn't know how to ride it. So I literally went out in the veld and I kind of made a fool of myself far away from tracks where anyone could see me. And then I started getting into motocross. And motocross is the tracks with the jumps and stuff. And so I enlisted Sheldon at the time because he's still around, and he showed me a little bit and started to do this motocross thing. And then I actually got into freestyle, which is the metal ramps, you know, with the tricks and stuff. And I started doing freestyle for a while, and I loved that. But I was like, you know what, I'm a family man, you know, I'm a dad, and you know, this kind of stuff. Maybe freestyle it's a bit dangerous. So it didn't work out so great, and went over to off-road and enduro and that type of stuff. And I grew up hiking and camping a lot, and so this off-road enduro, mountains, streams, canyon types, I was like, yeah, this is it. And it would be safer than freestyle, which it wasn't, but it turned out not to be, but that was the logic at the time, and that's basically how we got into off-road racing.
Okay, so then you got into off-road racing, and you obviously got good at it. I mean, it wasn't just, I mean, Joe's being very humble here, but I mean, he got very, very good at it. I mean, you won a few races, and you were on your way to the top. And then something happened.
Yeah, I obviously had a background in bicycles, so the motor, once you get used to, clutches and accelerators and stuff, it comes, fairly quickly. And yeah, you get that taste of winning a few club races, and you're like, yeah, I can do the regional thing, and you win a few regionals, and you like start entering nationals, and now you're like, you get like that whole, the red smoke, we call it, the red mist, we call it with racing, where you kind of like, you just kind of switch off, and you got that first corner, you're coming into a corner, and it's a whole bunch of guys, and you just stick those elbows out, and you hit that gas, and you're like, bring it, let's go. And you're there to win. You're not there to have fun and race and enjoy the outdoors. You're there to annihilate and, just rip up the turf, it's guy stuff. And I got caught up in that, and I got caught up in championships and points, and it was 2 races left in the season, and I'm lying second in the Northern Regions regional championship, and if I could win that second last race, I could win this championship, and I just had to win that race, and I lined up on that start, and it was the 13th of October 2007, and I just went for that first corner, and that was the last thing I remembered. And the next thing, I woke up and I'm facing the sky, my helmet's off, the bike's all gone, it's quiet, and at first I thought I had all dirt in my mouth, and I started spitting out this dirt, but it wasn't dirt, it was my teeth, and I'd shattered 12 of my teeth, just some of them right down into the gums. But that wasn't the worst injury. What I'd done is I couldn't feel my legs, so there was no feeling, no movement, and I lay there for 3 hours because of where we were. It was hard to get me out of there, and it turned out that I'd broken my T8, T9 vertebra in my back, and I'd crushed my spinal cord, so I was paralyzed. And that was when my whole life, just the whole bottom of my whole life just fell out.
I mean, that's quite a hectic part of the book to read, because you've got to go and understand what this man went through. I mean, he's just touching on some of the stuff that actually happened. But there's Meredith, and then she went to the hospital, and they had to wait like 3 hours before he got to the hospital, because they needed to air vacuum off the field. I mean, that's stuff that you don't find in movies. And then you were in the hospital, and they shared that news with you, Joey. I mean, what went through your mind at that stage?
At first, you're like, whenever a doctor says like, this is it, what your first reaction is like, no, not me. You don't understand me. I'm not a wheelchair kind of guy. This isn't gonna happen. And then as the days turn into weeks, and you've got no movement, no nothing, and your legs are just disappearing, and everything's going, and all your muscles atrophy, and you look down at a body that you can't feel, but you can't even recognize. It's like, these are not my legs. These are, it's my leg. It's my quad. It's like, that's, and it's just this this bone with like the skin just hanging from it, like bags of water with a little bit of muscle that's there that you can't even use, and it's just, and it starts sinking in, and every day it's just sinking in that this is forever. This is how it's going to be, and it was difficult to like keep it together every day. And I'm a pretty positive kind of guy, but the reality is grim. It's real, because you're dealing with it. You lose all bowel control, all bladder control. So you're literally lying there with these skinny legs, wearing nappies, just crapping yourself halfway through physio sessions, and man, I can't. You have those thoughts. I can't live like this. I can't. And as much as you've got support, you think about suicide. You think about those kind of things, because when you're there in that situation, life will never be worth living like this. Like, never. I can't imagine it, it's not. And you have all those kind of dark thoughts, and it was dark days.
I can imagine, because, I mean, not only is it you, and then, you know, there's a wife, there's 4 daughters, you know, doing all the stuff with them again that you imagine doing. I mean, all of those fairy tales are wiped out. And I mean, Joey, he's quite honest in the book, and he shares quite detail. You know, yeah. So you'll find the details in there. But you know, tonight I just want to talk about, you know, what actually happened, because it's quite interesting. You know, if one hears about somebody breaking their back, you know, we don't really understand it. And I think one of the things that was frustrating for you is you don't understand it either. And you did a bit of research. So tell us what the research said and what you actually found out what your injury really was.
Cool. So what I'd done is I'd broken my T8, T9 vertebrae. So you have C vertebrae in your neck, then you have all the T vertebrae, which are all the vertebrae that the ribs are connected to, up to 12. And then you have L vertebrae, which is your lower back. Then you have your S vertebrae, you know, going down into your sacrum and, you know, that kind of stuff, you know, coccyx and things. So I'd broken my back sort of here. Okay, they say it's bra strap height, but I wouldn't know because I don't know. Just to be clear, you know. And nothing like that's in the book.
That's your story.
But you were going to buy it for a moment there, weren't you? So what I'd done is I'd broken the vertebrae and I'd crushed my spinal cord. Now, when someone's paralyzed, what happens is obviously your brain, if you want your leg to move, your foot to move, it says a signal move, and it goes zoop, down your spinal cord, out between the vertebrae, down to your leg, and it says move, and it moves. And that's obviously how it works. Now, wherever you crush your spinal cord, if you sever your spinal cord, for instance, then nothing can get past there, and spinal cords it's like the same as your brain. It can't heal. You know, so if it's damaged, it's done, and it's done forever. It doesn't heal. Now, when you have 2 types of spinal cord injuries, you have a complete and you have an incomplete. So a complete would be like a sever, but also a crush. If it crushes it, it's the same as severed. The fact that it's still connected, if it's crushed and the signals don't go through, it's permanent and it's forever. And there is no medical procedures or anything like that possible now to change that. So it's a done deal, and that would be a complete injury. So mine was an incomplete injury. So what happens is you crush the spinal cord, you get swelling on the spinal cord, and so you have it as if it's complete, so you have nothing. Now, when I was first had the accident, it was complete, there was nothing. And so as the days go by, nothing comes back, and it's considered complete. So now this is a kind of a done deal. But then I got a little flicker in my right toe. So if I really focused my right toe, I could make it just twitch. So it showed something's getting through. And then as the swelling went down, I started to get a little bit more as the weeks and months went on. But I still have, so incomplete can be anything from complete with a little flicker in your toe to perfectly functional person, but they can't feel hot or cold on the one side of their leg, for instance, you know. So it's this whole range, and so it's one of these injuries where you can't say, no one can say that's what you're going to get and that's how long it's going to take. Sometimes it can take years and you get a tiny little thing, and sometimes you get nothing at all, and sometimes you can even get a lot back. But to get a lot back from being almost complete is almost no chance. So for me, it got slowly a bit back. So where I am now today is I can feel touch below my chest, but I can't feel hot or cold or pain sensation. I can't run, I can't jump, I can do a little bit of a dodgy jog kind of thing over a short distance, but my legs don't work properly. I can go down on my haunches and just about stand up with just my body weight, but I can't pick up any weights like that. And when I'm tired, my legs will spasm, so they'll jump around a lot like this, you know. And when my adrenaline goes, my legs would spasm. And to be perfectly frank, I don't have the best bowel control, but you know, I'm fine to kind of function. But if I've got to go, I'm running. you know. And yeah, you're trying to run. Yeah, I'm tripping and falling in the direction of the bathroom. Yeah, and I still have to use catheters, so I have to self-catheter. So my bladder can hold urine fine, and I can release like a little, but I have to use catheters several times a day to drain my bladder fully, so that I don't get urinary tract infections and that kind of stuff. And I have to take medication every day to help me digest food. So there's a lot of issues that you can't really see, but I still deal with every day. Yeah.
So I know as part of the injury that you did, there was a bit of swelling on your head as well, and luckily nothing, you know, there was nothing that happened, you know, from a brain point of view, except your wife might feel different every now and then.
Yeah, there's the doctor says that I'll never be normal, but I'll be the same as I was before the accident. So that's but yeah, I had a massive concussion on my head, just swelled on top here. You know, my wife says I look like a cone head. You know, it's just right up here, and so it all swelled up, and there was like a lot of fluid and stuff, but there was nothing. Apparently nothing permanent. But that was the biggest worry in the beginning, because I kept repeating myself, asking the same questions over and over again the first few days, and so I have like recollection of those days, but it's like a dream, you know, where it doesn't all quite add up and fit together and that kind of stuff. And so there was definitely like trauma, you know, but nothing permanent, which is obviously fortunate, because you were talking earlier about the marriage side of things. It's incredibly difficult for Meredith to have a husband who's physically disabled, but obviously to now deal, if you then become mentally disabled, that's a whole nother level, because physically disabled, I'm still the same guy, I just can't do the stuff I used to do, but obviously mentally would be a whole nother league. And so that was a massive concern for everyone, obviously Meredith, myself, that there'd be, you know, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we were very fortunate that it was. But my helmet completely broke. I had a top of the range carbon fiber helmet, and it completely just split right the way through, and it just cracked across the top all the way down. It was almost in pieces. It was just a mess. So it did its job, but yeah, it was, if I was in perhaps a cheaper helmet or something like that, it was very close to being serious injury.
Now, I would love to, there's so many stories in this book, but we can't go through all of them tonight. So you either need to buy the book, or you need to book Joey for a keynote. So he does a beautiful keynote on this, where he shares a lot of the stories, and he's got a beautiful visual presentation with photos of the bikes and, you know, and all the stuff that has happened along the way. But for now, Joey, I want to jump into, you know, after the accident, and all right, so the one thing I want to say about Joey and the accident, so what I find fascinating is, don't give this man hope. Because if you give him a glimmer of hope, he will use it, and he will run with it, and he will make an absolute meal of it. Because when he saw his little toe flicker, that was all he needed.
Oh, it's on.
But it also talks to me about humans and about psychology behind that. You know, give us a little bit of hope, and we can do stuff. You know, so always in your business and in your life, just look for that little bit of hope, because if there's hope, you can do something about it. And this is what I love so much about Joey's story, is he took that hope and he made. And the fact that after that, Joey, you obviously went through a massive process of rehabilitation. It's years. We're talking 10 years. Going through that, the physios and going through this process to get to a stage, and then coming back to the story of, you know, at church where he flicks his leg over and he goes on the bike for a first time. Everything before that is massive. But let's take the story from flicking over the bike, your leg over the bike, and then going and feeling that freedom and that exhilaration and that, like, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I can do this again. What happened after that?
Well, I wanted to race the Dakar Rally before I broke my back. And so when I lay in that hospital, I clearly remember lying there and just thinking, man, if I could come back from this to race the Dakar, that would be freaking awesome, you know. And so as I started walking again, and then I rode that bike for the first time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to race the Dakar one day. And it wasn't the kind of thing you could like tell a lot of people. I could pretty much told almost no one, you know, just a couple of close mates and Meredith. And I'm sure if you can imagine a guy barely out of a wheelchair telling you he's going to race the Dakar Rally, you'd be like, yeah, we need to cut the meds on this kid, yeah, you know. It was just, but it was real to me. I was like, I could do this, you know, I could do it one day. And so I started working at that, you know. And obviously, to race the Dakar, you have to qualify. You don't just pitch up at the start. You've got to send in a CV with all the racing you've done. You have to finish an international rally on the international rally circuit, and you submit the CV and you hope that you get selected, you know, that you qualify and you get selected to race. And so then those next few years after riding that bike, and this dream was just fueling this ambition, and I used the dream to be like, to push myself, to like, yeah, it was gave me something to aim for. And so through the years we just started ticking over these races and getting back into it. And obviously the first time you race again, it's horrendous because I was winning those races. I was racing for positions, you know, I was one of those guys. Now I'm that oak at the back that's struggling through the rocks, that keeps dropping the bike over, that's getting lapped again and again. And now I'm a hacker, you know, and I'm like, no, I'm a good rider. You know, and as the guys come up to you, they're like, well, I'm frustrated, getting around you. I'm like, this isn't me. You know, I'm better than this. But it was very humbling to be that guy again and to be suffering away at the back. But it was brilliant because it gave me a different perspective, and it made me realize that for the rest of my life, I'm not racing those guys anymore. Those days are gone. I'm not racing those guys. I'm racing myself, and I'm racing my injury. And every meter, every 10 meters, every lap that I finish at this race, I'm winning. You know, I'm at the back, make no mistake. But I'm winning, and that was, and to realize that made a massive difference, because then I was chasing this Dakar goal. That was my fire. That was what was motivating me to keep going and to ride these bikes and keep pushing.
You know, it's for me, it's fascinating. You know, we totally underestimate the power of setting something that you desire. Some people call it goals, some people call it what they want, some people call it objectives. I don't care what you call it. But what I do care is when your heart connects with something that you really want, no matter where you come from, you can actually get it. And that's what Joey did. So Joey, I mean, talk to us a bit about the Dakar. You know, people talk about the Dakar like it's, oh, you did the Dakar. Okay, it's that little long race that you go up. But the commitment to that, the money involved, the how many hours you've got to train, the pre-races that you've got to complete. You know, was that easy for you? Besides the fact that you had to throw your leg over the spike.
Yeah, it was dead easy. It's not a big deal. No, it's crazy. What it is the Dakar Rally is a race where it's 9,000 kilometers long. So to give you an idea how far that is, that's from Cape Town to Cairo plus 1,000 kilometers. It's raced off-road and it's done in 2 weeks. So that gives you an idea, the kind of distance and hours that you're covering and what you got to do. Now you can race it on a bike, a quad, a car, or in a truck. So obviously I'm racing on a bike. Now to qualify, you have to, Dakar's owned by ASO, which is the same company that owns the Tour de France. So these are the two big races, the Tour de France and the Dakar. Now in 39 years of the Dakar running, there's been 70 deaths, 7-0. So it's not only an extreme race in terms of difficult, it's an incredibly dangerous race where riders die, this happens, you know. And so it's all of that mixed in. You know, you do a race like a long race, you know, something that's tough for one day, and a comrades marathon type of thing. It's tough, you know, make no mistake, a race like that is tough, but you might have knee problems, you might struggle with shin splints, you might have, you know, blisters and that kind of stuff. But now, when you're racing Dakar, you're racing, some days we race 22 hours in the day. You sleep for an hour or two and you're racing again. And so it's that day on where you're finished. You're finished physically, you're worn out emotionally. It ticks all the boxes for suffering and torture. And And it was, when you're tired and you don't have a lot of sleep, then you're crashing more. Now when you're crashing more and you're falling more, then it's even more taxing. And the other thing is, it's not a GPS route. You have to navigate it. So you have a big scroll of paper and you'll have a look on the bike. I brought the Dakar bike that's just outside downstairs. And it's got a scroll of paper on it with the directions. So you literally have to navigate your way through the deserts and through these places on cap headings, which is a numerical compass direction, and enter this canyon, go this, at this fork, take the right at a cap heading of 224 for 4.8 kilometers, into the rift, follow the dry riverbed. It's that kind of stuff. And so you've got to be switched on mentally. You've got to be reading this while you're racing, while there's trucks and cars passing you, and with all those dangers. And so they say it's like racing motocross while you're texting. You know, it's just crazy. And so it's an extreme race. When I lined up at the start, only 9 South Africans in the history of the race over 39 years had ever finished the Dakar on a motorbike.
And then, I mean, the cost of this race. So you just buy a bike that's about 100 grand, and then you go to the tour that's about another 100 grand, it's about 200 grand.
Yeah, it's close. So you just start by about 1.4 million. The bike costs about 600,000 rand for the bike that you need on the start, because you have to carry a lot of petrol. An average motorbike carries about 10 litres. The Dakar bike carries about 33 litres, because obviously you're going through deserts, long distances, you have to have a range on your bike. You have to have all the navigation stuff, your cap heading, your road book stuff, all those type of things. And you have to have a bike that is extremely, extremely reliable. Because if you imagine if you were going to ride from here to pretty much Scotland, what servicing and what parts would you use up on that bike on that trip? And what are the possible bike problems that you'd experience on a trip like that? I mean, on any car or anything, you're in for like crazy repairs and stuff. Now you bunch all that in 2 weeks. You get to service that bike every night. Anything that breaks down outside of that, you're out the race. It's that simple, you're out the race. So we had new tyres, front and back every day, with new mousses inside. We had new chains, new sprockets every few days. It was just so much maintenance on it, and so all of that costs money. You have to buy a place on a team because you need a mechanic. And so what happens is the mechanic will work on your bike all night. Then the next day he'll be in the truck traveling, and he'll sleep while traveling, and then work on the bike all night, and then sleep while traveling. And you're racing in the day and sleeping at night, in theory, if you get in time to sleep. Some of us are too far back in the field, we slept a lot less. But so that was kind of the system. And so that mechanic has to transport all his stuff. You've got to transport those 28 tires, 28 mousses. You've got to transport all your spares. And so the best way is you buy a place on a team. So I bought a place with the Bash Trucks team, which is a Dutch team. And I bought a place on this team. Your entry fee to the Dakar, all of that, excluding the bike, works out to about 1.1 million rand. I did not have 1.1 million rand. So the way that I did that Morocco rally, which I paid for myself, and that was about 250,000, and that was my international race, and I bought a place on a French team for that, and I went and raced in Morocco, which was fantastic. We rode through the Sahara Desert. I mean, on a motorbike. I've got to tell you one quick thing, and I'm talking a lot. You don't have to be a guest, but we lined up at the last day of that race in Morocco. Now, 150 guys on bikes, shoulder to shoulder with all these guys. You're facing the Sahara Desert. And a couple dunes in, there's a 4x4 parked on top of the dune. And you got this guy, and he's standing on top of this 4x4, and he lights a flare, whoosh, and this 150 bikes just start off, and you race into the Sahara Desert on a cap heading. There's no track, there's no route, it's a compass direction, and it's like, go, and it was just the most incredible thing, But I finished that Morocco rally, I qualified for Dakar, I waited 6 weeks after I sent in my CV, and I got the email and it said, "Dear Joey, congratulations, you've been accepted to race the Dakar Rally." You're just like, that's incredible. And then you're like, okay, it starts in 6 months, and we need 1.1 million rand. And so I sat down with Meredith and my girls, and we said, all right, how are we going to do this, And we said, you know, I mean, we've come 9 years to get that far. We're not going to let a silly little thing like money stop us now. So we said, let's do this, and we decided we're going to raise the money. So what we did was we sold caps, we sold T-shirts, we did fundraising evenings where we did get a speaker and we'd get tables and stuff. And my daughters would go table to table. Would you like to buy a raffle ticket? And we'd raffle off different prizes and stuff. And we did adventure bike days. We did enduro bike races. We sold some rhino horn. We didn't. I'm joking. We didn't do the adventure days. But we did whatever it took. And just a couple days before the start, I got the last amount I needed. And in 6 months, we raised 1.1 million rand.
So next time any of you say to me, well, I can't do this because I don't have the money, please read this book. Okay? Because when you want to do something, and you really, really want to do it, you can do it.
That's it.
So Joey, I mean, this race is 2 weeks. So for how long did it go well in the race for you?
20 meters. No, it was tough, man. I remember at the end of day 3, I was so physically finished, so mentally finished. I'd spent like 17, 18-hour days on the bike with like 4 hours sleep in between. And you imagine after 3 full days of that, you know what it's like when you pull an all-nighter studying or something? You know, the next day you're a mess. Now you do 3 days of racing, through the deserts, through the, you know, there's harsh conditions and stuff. At the end of day 3, I was so physically done. I felt like I'd mentally prepared myself to feel that way at the end of the race. And I'm on day 3. And I was just so done, and I was like, there's just no ways. There's no ways I can physically do this race. Now, I've raced this big rally in Morocco. I've raced throughout South Africa. I've done the roof of Africa. I've done the Botswana desert. I know tough races. I know how to freaking race, man. And I'm like, at the end of day 3, I am done. I'm done. And I was like, there's no ways. But I knew that the way that I had to do this was just one day at a time, one stage at a time, if I can make it to checkpoint 1, if I can make it to waypoint 4, if I can, just that, you just had to take it little by little. And that's what we did, and we just started ticking away. There was 3 of us South Africans that started the race last year, and on day 4, one of the other guys was Walter de Blanche, and he went out. He burnt out his motor. It was high altitude in the dunes. It was a gnarly, terrible dune field, and when your bikes are at high altitude, they don't have as much power, and guys are just stuck everywhere. You get to this dune field, and there's dunes as far as you can see, and you just see bikes just stuck. You can smell engines overheated. There was a bike on fire right there, literally burning up because they overheat, the petrol starts to boil, and then you just get a bit of grass on the exhaust and stuff, it catches a bit of a flame, and obviously with all that petrol on the bike's hoof, it goes up quick. And the guy was chucking sand on it, trying to stop it, and then he couldn't, and obviously the petrol ignites and there's nothing you can do. And the guy was just sitting there on the dune, just crying with his bike on fire. And then the guy from South Africa, he burnt out his motor, just getting stuck, you know, burning out the clutch, and the motor just burnt out, and he was out. But because I'd struggled so much with the racing when I came back, I learned a technique, and it was something that I learned to race enduros. And what I do is, you pick a spot where you're going to stop. So a lot of guys will go, and they'll race, get stuck, lean on the bars, you know, breathe it in, you know, suck in some air, get the heart rate down and stuff, and then and go again like this. And I learned that you've got to stop where you can pull off, because the guy gets stuck. He'll get stuck in this deep sand or whatever, then he'll stop, get his breath back, and then he'll go again. So he's starting off in a position where he's stuck. So by the time he gets going again, his heart rate's already up, he's already suffering again. And so what I would do is I'd pick a little mound. So there'd be a little mound 10 meters away, and I'd be like, in the stick stand, and I'd stop on top of the mound before I was totally done. Switch off the bike. give it a minute, 30 seconds, whatever it was, let the bike cool a bit, get your breath back because you're at high altitude, so you're like, you're struggling to breathe. We raced, we went up to 5,000 meters, to give you an idea. So that's 2 kilometers higher than the top of Sani Pass. It's crazy. And then I'd go again, and I'd stop at a place I could pull off from easy. And I just did that. And so you had this carnage of bikes, and I would just go tick, 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 and just pick my way through this dune field. I don't care about positions. I don't care how much time I'm losing. I just want to survive. I just want to get through. And that's what I did. And I got through those stages. And the other South African was David Thomas. High-speed crash on day 5. Massive high-speed crash. The bike landed on top of him. He broke his leg in 9 places and sent his tibia up through his knee. The guy was just a mess. And I got to him as he, after he had the accident, the chopper had landed, so he had paramedics with him, and I got there, and I actually videoed the whole thing on my GoPro. And at the time, I knew it kind of felt a bit macabre. You're like videoing it out, and he's like, oh, his legs all, But I knew from my experience that having broken my back, I don't have any footage of that day. I don't have any footage of me lying there. I mean, how cool would it be now to have that footage? It would be freaking cool. And so some people might not agree with that. But it would be awesome to know, like, that's where I came from. That was how bad it was, And so I recorded that for him. And I recorded all of that. And I helped to load him into that chopper. And he had a little sticker on his bike of his brother's name who had died a few years earlier. And he said to me in that chopper, he said, take that sticker off my bike, put it on your bike, and take that sticker to the end. And I did that. And I took that sticker off his bike, I put it on mine. And it was like just emotions and all of that. But I was physically done. And then to see your mate just with this broken leg and just loading into a chopper and your other mates are already out. And so by the end of day 5, I'm the last South African left in this race. And I just ticked through those days bit by bit. And you got to read the book. But there was, you see what I did there? But each day there was just so many things, and you can't cover it all, but each day there was just little bits that happened, and just, it was just suffering and hurt and things. But by the time I got to, the second last day, I was lying stone last. But I'm winning. And so, just stone last in the race. And yeah, that was where we were.
I don't know if you realize, but Joey has just given you the best tip ever for energy management. Because what we do in life is we run and we hit life as hard as we can. And then when we're tired, we try and go on a holiday, and what you actually should do is you should stop before you get tired. And one of the interesting things, and I've been playing with something myself, is are you going to bed at night tired, or are you going to bed at night just because it's the right thing to do? You don't have to go to sleep being tired. You can actually go to bed before that so that you could get into that routine, because it's what Joey did. It's about managing your energy. Anyway, back to the back to the race. But Joey, what I think most of us don't realize is actually how dangerous this race is. And I recall one of your stories about the dunes and how dangerous the dunes are, because you've got these cars behind you. And just share with us a bit about how dangerous it actually is.
The way it works at Dakar is at 4 o'clock in the morning, they send the bikes off, and they send you off one at a time. So the first guys, I'll send them 2 minutes apart, boom, 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 like this, then 1 minute apart, then every 30 seconds, and so all the bikes go. Then it takes sort of an hour and a half for all the bikes to go. Once the bikes are gone, then they send the cars. Once the cars are gone, then they send the trucks. Now the cars and the trucks are a lot faster than a lot of the bikers, especially in certain terrain. To give you an idea, the truck wheels are about this big. So if you have a rock about this big, that doesn't even feature for a truck. Like he's like, straight over it. So you'll have a rocky field where it's like a flat plain full of these rocks. So as a bike, you're like this, us guys, we talk with noises. And so you're like, you're like kind of winding around this rocks. That truck is like, just straight through, and it's kicking those rocks out the back like it's sand, they're flying all over, and these guys just go. And so every day, you're getting passed by cars and trucks. So that is an incredibly dangerous scenario, because for a car or a truck, you've got earplugs in, and you've got the sound of your bike, and these bikes have big race pipes on them. I mean, that bike is loud. So you can't hear it, even if there's a race car behind you. You can't hear it, you can't see it, so you don't know. And you know what it's like? You know when you cycle, and you're cycling on the side of the road, and a truck comes past you really close, and you're like, whoa, flips, what was that? Like you get that bit wind, and you're like, geez, And so you get some scenarios like that, but they have a system. And the way the system works is when that car driver sees you in the distance, he sees that dust, he presses a button in his car, and it sends off an alarm on your bike. So your bike goes dee-dee-dee, 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 and you look around, and you'll see the car behind you, and now they normally give you about 200 meters. So it goes, you look behind you, you see the car or the truck, and then you pick a spot where you can pull off, and you say, okay, cool, street over there by that tree, and you pull off out the way, and that truck comes past, just off he goes, and it's dust everywhere and kicking up rocks, and you're like this, and you have to stop, because if you keep going, when a car or truck comes past, there's so much dust you can't see. So now imagine doing 100 k's an hour on a dirt road, and now close your eyes for 15 seconds. That's what it's like. So you have to stop, because you choose life. And so you pull over to the side and you stop, and this truck goes past, and you've got to check there isn't another guy behind him, because you only get one signal even if there's two vehicles. And you check, make sure there's not us, and you're like, and off you go racing again. And so this had happened to me hundreds of times at Dakar. And the first time that truck passes you, I promise you now, I had zero bowel control that day. But no, it wasn't that bad. But it is so scary. You can't believe the size of those things. And now these are like professional racers. So they don't give you a meter around and go around on the dirt all slow. They go past you with millimeters to spare. And so it is, when you first encounter those trucks in the racing, it's like, what? That's just mental. You're like, and you're thinking like, what am I doing? I'm going to die here. And you've heard about these guys dying, these 70 guys that have died over the 39 years and stuff. And you think like, yeah, it's guys that are like pushing too hard, and it's not, they're reckless oaks. And suddenly you're in that scenario and you're like, this is how they die. I get it. You can die like this. You realize it. And I think the one you're talking about was in the dunes. So you're in this dune field. Now obviously in dunes you can't see over the next side of a dune. And because the sand is soft, if you're going up a dune and you stop accelerating, you just sink into the sand. And now you're in for a couple of hours of digging and towing and making a plan. And so I came up on a dune. And now if you go too slow and you stop short of the crest on a bike, you can't make up 1 meter. Because it's steep, and you try to rev that bike, even if you're off the bike pushing it, it just goes into the sand. So you have to get up to the top and over. Or, if you're not going to make it, you turn around and come back down. So I came up this dune, and I've got it just about right, and my alarm goes off on my bike. And it's an alarm to say there's a biker down. It's a different kind of alarm. So I realise there's a biker down, so I tap off as I go over the top. Now, as you go over the top, you accelerate. So you'll often see the Dakar bikes that come over, they go whoop, and there's a big plume of sand that comes out from the back tire, because you want to be accelerating down the face to keep the front wheel light so you don't dig in. So I tapped off, so my front wheel digged in, and I went, just a stupid little bail, sort of walking pace, and I'm like, woof, off the bike in the sand. I'm like, some words that weren't in the Bible. And so I slide down this face just a meter or so, and I'm next to this bike. And when the bike tips over, it takes about 10 seconds or so, and then the engine will cut out. It's just the way they're built. So the engine cuts out. And I got this bike, and I'm about 3 or 4 meters from the crest. And I just hear a truck. And I hear whoop, 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 coming up the side of the dune I've just come up. Now there's trucks all coming over the dune here. So this truck is about to come through the crest. Now when the trucks come through the crest, they're like, boof, through the top, and then whoop, down the other side. And I'm literally standing here like this, and I can see the top of the crest sort of by this roof here. Now, because you're on the slant, you can't scramble up this thing quick and say, hey, careful. As you're taking a step, it slides down in the sand. And you're standing with this bike next to you, and you're like, left, right, which way am I going to dive here, And you just hear this whoop, whoop, whoop. And this guy just broke through this thing about 4 meters to my left. And he just came like this, whoop, whoop, and this truck just went. And man, it was just, you had these moments like this almost every day, these close calls, and you understand that a lot of it is like, it's just luck. I mean, that could have been 4 meters to his left, and I'd have been in the grill of that truck. You know, it was just crazy. But the risks that you take as a biker, so much more, because the guys in the cars, you get a lot of good guys in cars that are like, they'll give you plenty notice, they give you a wide berth, they're good oaks. And you get a lot of guys that've got the red mist, where it's, I'm racing, whatever it takes kind of thing. And so when you get those guys, they risk damaging their grill. They risk maybe dinging a radiator. As a biker, it's your life. You know, your life is on the line here. It's, you know, if you have a crash with a truck or a car, you're going home in a chopper or a body bag. You know, whereas these guys, so they race very different to the way you race as a biker.
Wow. Okay, so there's a lot of tension in this room at the moment. You know, I can feel it. Now, I don't want to spoil the ending yet, because the ending is quite an interesting story. So I'm not going to ask Joey about the ending, and I know we're going a bit longer than usual. So just SMS somebody that's waiting for you on the other side, and just let them know you're going to be a bit late for dinner.
It's because you talk so much.
We have that habit, Joey. But I'd like to ask the audience to ask you a few questions.
Sure, go.
You know, my questions are getting boring, so you're probably tired of me by now. So who would like to ask Joey a question? Yes, we've got a question up there.
Can you tell us a bit about the route?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, can you tell us a bit about the route, Joey?
Yeah, sure.
And
So,
Joey,
yeah.
also the logistics when you get in at night.
Cool.
I mean, does your team cook food or...
Gotcha.
and stuff
Okay.
like that?
So a bit about the route and then a bit about the logistics. Okay, cool. So like what happens at night when you get in, that kind of stuff. So the Dakar route traditionally started in Paris and ended in Dakar, the capital of Senegal. And it only ran that route for a few years. A lot of people think it was always the same route, but it wasn't. It changed every year. In fact, in 1992, they raced from Paris to Cape Town. So the Dakar Rally actually finished in Cape Town in 1992. And it changed. It went through Algeria, Senegal. It finished in Egypt at the pyramids a few times. It started in different places in Europe. It went through, I'm trying to think all the countries, Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Mauritania, these kind of things. In 2008, Al-Qaeda said they're going to target the race. Now, for a few years, the race had some problems with terrorists and this kind of stuff. But in 2008, they said, we are going to kill the competitors on this race. And they murdered 4 French spectators right before the start. And so on the eve of the 2008 race, they had to cancel the Dakar Rally. And it looked like it was the end of an era. But what the ASO did is then they had an offer to go to South America. Now South America is the Atacama Desert. It has the Andes Mountains. It has all of these beautiful places which are, in terms of riding, very much on a par and sometimes even more extreme than North Africa. And so the race moved to South America. And following the Dakar tradition, they have a different route every year. So it's never the same route. So I raced through Paraguay. We started in Asunción, the capital of Paraguay. We raced out of Paraguay through Argentina, up into Bolivia. We raced through Bolivia. We had the halfway point in La Paz, Bolivia. Then we came out of Bolivia through the Andes Mountains, all the way down through Argentina, then right across South America, and we finished in Buenos Aires. This year, they raced Peru, Bolivia, and Argentina. And so you'll see each year it changes. And for South African guys, we're like super hoping that it comes to Southern Africa, you know, and that is a possibility. So you might find in the future the Dakar Rally might be Namibia, Botswana, South Africa, which would be freaking awesome. So that's really like, you know, what we would hope for. And that's the one clause I have in my contract with my wife, by the way, that I'm officially retired from Dakar, but if it comes to South Africa, we be racing. So it changes every year. Every year it's a different route, you know, every single year, but it's always about 9,000 kilometers. So that answers the route thing. As far as each night goes, the bivouac, which is what they call it, the nightly camp. So you have a distance you have to cover every day. So tonight it's here, tomorrow night it's there, the next night it's there. So what will happen is from here to here, you have a route that'll do this, you know, where you race and it's off-road and it's, you know, all this sort of stuff. Your service crew, your backup crew will take a tar road or a good dirt road, and they would go from here to here, a shorter distance. but they're still driving often 6 to 8 hours every day, you know, sometimes longer because there's a lot of traffic with all this stuff. Because the bivouac each night where you stay is a couple kilometers by a couple kilometers. It's like compound, you know. Sometimes I'll use army barracks or racetracks for the bivouacs, that kind of stuff. In that bivouac, there's a massive meal tent where you can get food 24 hours a day. There's all portable toilets. There's big trucks with all the race organization and the timing and the press and the guys doing the coverage for TV and the journalists and the medic tents and that kind of stuff. So you've got all this, like, it's a massive organization, and they've actually got 2 of them, and so they leapfrog each other because they can't set up and break down in 24 hours, so they actually leapfrog each other. And so my team would drive during the day, at which time my mechanic would be sleeping on the back of a truck. The truck driver would be driving it, get there that night, the truck driver would sleep, the mechanic would work on the bikes all night, and then we'd go again. And so that's how it was. But I was getting in so late, I couldn't walk to where they had the food. So on our truck we had some food as well, so I would often end up just eating what we had on the truck. Often just canned stuff and spaghetti and whatever we had around type of thing, you know.
Oh, any other questions? Yes.
How
Kim.
many started and how many finished?
How many started and how many finished?
And I don't know cars and stuff, but in the biker category, we had about 150 starters and 96 riders finished. I was 94.
Another question. Alan, nothing from you. Spellbound. So Joey, talk to us about being, I mean, how did you end up being number 94? I mean, tell us about that last bit of the race.
I'm not going to give you the ending because then no one will buy the book. But yeah, I had a lot of challenges in the race, you know, and I also, something I promised myself I wouldn't do is worry about places, because that's your biggest way not to finish the race is to race. And if you start worrying about positions and stuff, nobody cares if you come back 77th or 84th or 62nd. It makes no difference. No, it's like if, I mean, it's not quite the same, but if you run the comrades, you say, oh, you ran the comrades. People say, oh, what was your position? No one cares, you know. And I didn't care, and I really didn't care. I wanted to just finish. And so what I did is I never checked my position once the whole race. So every night it's all printed out, it's all on the notice board there at the bivouac. I never even looked, never even cared. I didn't care. It didn't matter. I just wanted to finish. And so I raced like that. So when I got to David Thomas, who broke his leg, I stopped, I videoed, I stayed with him for probably 20 minutes, half an hour, and then I carried on racing right at the back. And it didn't matter because I'm not there to race. Something interesting, which isn't in the book, is David Thomas raced Dakar this year. So he had all plates put in his leg, he had his leg all built up, and he finished. So just 2 weeks ago, he finished the Dakar already. How cool is that? So it's incredible. And so yeah, he finished. But so, and then what you can do is that night you can submit a form to say I stopped to give medical assistance, and you can claim the time back. I didn't claim the time back, so I never claimed time back at anything, and I couldn't care. And I had to just switch off to the time thing because in my nature, I'm a freaking racer, man. You know, I want to race, I want to win, I want to challenge, but physically I wasn't there, and I wasn't at the same caliber as any of those sort of guys. Even if I pushed hard, the best I could hope for is like 50th, you know. This is world-class international races, and so I switched off and we just raced at my own pace, and that's what happened. And so I ended up at the back of the race, and so I was at the back of this race a lot the whole race. The further back you are, the worse the track is, because now you get to like a sandy section. Now there's been 100 bikes gone through, there's been 40 or 50 cars or 80 cars, there's been 20 trucks and 30 quads. It's a mess, you know. What started off a little river in the morning, a little clear river, is now a 20-meter wide, half a meter deep mud pit. You know, it's just all been churned up and stuff. So then you're slower. Now when you're slower, you ride in the dark more. Now when you're riding in the dark, you ride slower because you can't see as much. And so you get into what we call the snowball at the back of the race. So you finish later, you have less sleep, you make more mistakes, the track's worse, and so I got caught up in the snowball, and it was something that was very dangerous because I came very close to going out so many times. So I was right at the back. And then on the second last day of Dakar, I was in a rut, and I'm in this deep rut, and there's fish, which is like a fine sand, and it's covering this rut, and I'm riding in this rut, and my alarm went off. And I looked around, and the car wasn't 200 meters back. He was like 30 meters back, and he's doing like double my speed. And I try to get out the way, but you know, like when you're in a rut and you try to turn, you know, it's like riding a bicycle next to a steep curve. You can't just turn onto the curb. The wheels like go against the curb. And I committed my weight, and this guy was on me, and I just dived off the bike. And this oak just went right over my bike. And he just completely destroyed this bike on the second last day. And that's when the whole adventure really began.
So, any more questions? No. Right. Okay, we're done.
Tracy's high-fiving me, I can see it.
I wanted to ask, how much work did you do on the bike during that time? And obviously, you started to do it then.
That's it.
Aha.
So, how much work did you do?
Lots.
Yeah.
Lots and lots. Well, so I looked down at this bike, and it was just, you know, what happened was the guy stopped about 30 meters up, and the navigator got out the car, and he went like this. And I was like, no! You know, like, this bike's in the middle of the track, just completely destroyed. And I've actually got it on my computer, so I can show you just now. We can have a look, and I'll show you what the bike actually looked like. And it was stuff. I'm out of this race. And he got back in the car, and he went. Boom, off he went. And I'm lying there, stone lost, in the middle of the desert in Argentina. I had 660 kilometers to still race that day. And the whole exhaust is crushed. The whole right foot peg is completely broken off. You have 3 tanks of petrol on the bike, 2 of them completely destroyed. The 1 tank I have is like just a couple liters left in the tank. It's just over. You know, all the navigation's completely broken. My bars are bent. The triple clamps are bent, so the whole front wheels all skew. The frame of the bike is bent. It's just over. And I'm stone lost. There's no one behind me. There's no one who can help me. And that was it. And it was tough. And it was very dusty there, and so my eyes were watering a bit. And it was just, that was it. Day 12 of 13, and I'm out the race. And so it was just too much, man. And I phoned my wife on the satellite phone, and she just cried. You know, she couldn't believe it. But I was like, no, there is no ways I'm going out on the second last day. There is just no freaking way, man. We've come 10 years to get this far. All the raising the money, the learning to walk, to ride, to race, to qualify. It cannot end like this. And so I started fixing that bike, and I took the whole exhaust off, and I disconnected all the petrol tanks that were damaged, and I just started riding without a foot peg, and I'm out the race. There's no ways I can even make it to the next place to get petrol. There's just no ways, and I'm out the race. And then
All right, thank you very much for attending, guys. I really appreciate all your time here. It was really nice of you. Was there more to that story, Jerry?
No, that's about
That's about it. Yeah, you raced, then you didn't. Yeah.
stuff happened.
Apparently, the end of the story is in the book. Any more questions for Jerry?
Yeah, I saw I get to one of the interviews on TV. You speak about getting to the point, it's the starting point. You know, the preparation, the mental psyche, and you just take us through that. You know, because I found that so interesting. More so 10 years of preparation, big start point, something that you work hard for, and
Yeah. Cool. So it was, to have a goal like the Dakar Rally is obviously like so extreme, and so it's huge, and so many times you talk about the psyche of it. I second guess myself again and again, and you're like, flip, is this just stupid? Is it right? Should I do this? What have I, like, even when I got that email saying, congratulations, Joe, you've been accepted to race the Dakar Rally, I read it and I was like, whoa! And I'm like, oh crap! I've got to go race this thing. And obviously raising the money, I have to put it out there. I've got to I need to raise the money. So what I'd like to have done is slunk off to South America, lined up at the start, And if it ended cool, lacquer, and if it didn't, no one would really know. But I didn't have that choice. I had to make the money to get there. The only way I could make the money is to get all over TV and all over the magazines and being like, I'm going to race the Dakar Rally, you know, come on, this is what's going to happen. And so you're putting it all out there, and you're putting like your whole, everything's on the line. And so from a psyche point of view, to make that jump to being like, I'm going to do it, to be like, this is what I'm going to do, was, man, it was hard. It's like, I mean, we all know what it's like when you tell everyone you're on a diet. You know, everyone's like, oh, how's the diet? Oh, shut up, I don't talk about it, you know. You don't know my problems, you know. And so it was very much like that on a grand scale, that you're kind of telling everybody you're going to do this epic thing, but you're so worried you're going to fail. And it was that was a big psychological part of it, that someone had to kind of give me that push and say, do it. And it was one of the big first pushes. We were at a race, and we'd finished the race, and one of the guys, organisers, knew that I was planning, but it was like kind of thing. And he says, and we have Joey Evans, who's going to be doing the Dakar in 18 months. And I'm like, huh? Yeah, and then I was like, oh, Joey, yeah. And then afterwards, are you doing that? I'm like, I guess I am. We're in now. And so I needed that kind of push, and then from there, you're all in. And so then you commit, and it's like you have to kind of put it out to the universe in a way, and like, what happens, happens, but you commit and you go for it. And it was scary, but if you don't, you never ever get the opportunity to do something fantastic. And so with business or anything, sometimes you've got to be like, stuff it, that's what I'm doing. If it doesn't work out and everyone is like, blah, 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 no, we'll live with it. But we're going to give it a bash, you know.
Well, Jerry, we're almost at that time where we have to start wrapping things up.
You're going to kick us out.
You know, we're getting at 8:30, the beers are getting warm, the wine or something. But I'd like to, there's another question for Jerry. Anybody else to ask another question about this amazing race, this Dakar? We've got one over there, and then we'll ask another one over there. So you want Hebel first?
I just want to find out, do you have any conversations with your family around what if you don't come back to join one of the 70 people?
Wow. Yeah.
Any conversations about Joey not being Joey anymore?
Yeah, no, you're right. That was a massive concern. And my wife said to me, you can do this on condition you come back. And I was like, I'll come back, my girl, I will. But she knew I couldn't make that promise. I knew I couldn't make that promise. And so, in a way, you kind of preparing yourself that, like, if this is it. Now, I'm a dad. I've got 4 daughters. And you better believe that I'm like, it's a stupid thing to do for a dad with 4 daughters. Let's be honest. It doesn't make sense in a way. But in my mind, I know I've got to do this. And how many guys die of a heart attack sitting in a cubicle at a bank, for crying out loud, you know? Any of us can get killed driving home from here tonight, you know? We've all got friends or people that have died in crazy ways, you know, cancer at a young age and all this sort of stuff. And so sometimes you just got to be, you know what? Everyone dies. No one gets out of this place alive. But you better believe it's going to be epic while I'm here. And it was kind of that sort of thing. And my wife got it. She doesn't understand it, but she gets it. You know, she gets it that's how it is. And so it was what it was. But I spoke to one of my good mates and I said, hey, if this doesn't work out, this is how things should go. I didn't say it to Meredith, but to one of my mates, I said, okay, this is, and we kind of like laid it all out. And it was a tough conversation to have. But yeah, I had it with one of my mates, and he like kind of knew. And then when I got back, he's like, thank goodness I didn't have to sort all that stuff out, you know.
I take my hat off for your wife. I think she's a very special lady behind all of this.
We were boxing well above our weight, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yes, we have another question over there.
What was the biggest driving factor to get you through the race? Was it your family? Was it just your lifelong dream? Was it luck?
Yeah.
Oh, what was your biggest driving factor?
Yeah, for me at Dakar, it had taken so much to get there. It was just the sacrifices that you'd made over the years, you know, and you'll read in the book some of the challenges I've had on the way to Dakar, the cow incident, for instance, you'll read about, and all these kind of things. It was just, I like to call it the cow attack, you know, but there's so many things that it took, that raising the money, the sacrifices that Meredith and my girls had made, the financial sacrifices. Everybody who donated to me put their names on my bike. And so I had more than 320 names on my bike. I know that there's thousands of people back home following this race and stuff. And so it was like, and you know, that whole, like we were saying just now, you put it out there, you've told everyone you're going to do. So it was like, I'm freaking finishing this race, man. I don't care what happens. And I had a little quote, which is, Meredith hates this quote, but it's death before DNF. And DNF stands for did not finish. So it's death before you don't finish. So we were like, all the chips on the table, we're all in. This is like, I don't care what happens, we're crossing that down finish line.
Thank you, Joey. Joey, so one final question from my side is before we knock off and network and mingle a bit. Are you going to let us know about how that story goes, or do we have to read the book?
You have to read the book.
Sounds like you have to read the book. One more question there. Okay, we'll take one more, Joey?
Yeah, bring it.
Okay.
Wow, it's a remarkable story. Joey, I want to find out, where is the bike now?
Downstairs right there.
Is it on auction or you...
No, we are keeping that bike until the day I die.
So thank you for reminding us. So Joey's bike is downstairs.
It's been fixed up since we came back. KTM helped me with a lot of spares and stuff. It cost 300,000 Rand to fix that bike. So it gives you an idea. It was toasted. But it's all fixed up now, and it's all as it would have been on the start line. It's got all stickers as it was at Dakar. So on your way out, whatever, you can have a squiz there. You know, it's down there, downstairs.
They can have a photo taken on
Yeah, for sure,
with the bike as well.
You got one last one.
Okay, go for it.
How do you top this after going operating through all of that?
No, that's it. You know, when the whole thing with the car going up, the bike happened and all that stuff, I was so angry at the time, but I look back and think like, that was freaking epic, you know, because of what happened after that. It just made it just so incredible that it was. So people say, would you go back to Dakar, you know? And I'm like, nothing will ever top that, you know? But yeah, this mine's going. I've got other plans for the future, so we'll see how that goes. And when I'm ready to put it all out there, then we'll see, you know? But yeah, there's other stuff we want to do. But I don't think it'll top that ever. Cheers.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, Joey will be here. You'll do some autographs for us, Joey.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you haven't bought your book, to donate that to the Signature Library, please support Joey's books. He will sign one for the Signature Library as well. And then, yeah, thank you very much for attending tonight. We really appreciate Joey. Joey, thank you so much. If we can have a big round of applause for Joey, please. I really appreciate Joey being here. He's already had 2 gigs today that he did. He was at Nedbank doing some keynote presentations there. So thank you very much for coming out to the Business Book Club, sharing your knowledge. I mean, this is a place where we come, we grow, we mingle, we meet new friends. So please stay with us and mingle a bit. And yeah, thank you very much. And then also, just last but not least, just thank you to Scoops. Deborah, where you're hiding, thank you very much for hosting us. It's always a great venue. We love being at Scoops. Thank you very much to Angus, our man behind the piano. If you listen carefully, he'll play some Pink Floyd in the background there on the piano, which I'm always a big favourite of. And Jane, thank you very much for making it all happen. The lady behind the scenes, making sure that everything is happening as clockwork. Please like our Facebook page, the Business Book Club. It's called The Business Book Club. Like our Facebook page. You'll be getting notified of all the events going forward. It'll come through on your feed. And then anything else that I have missed out, Jane? Just something for Joey. Joey, this is something small to say thank you for spending your time with us today. Thank you very much, Joey. Cool. All right, thank you very much, everybody.